equipping it with a large network of underground tunnels, evidently to supply fresh water. Another capital was Susa Shushan, located near the Chospeskaka River in ancient Elam, occupying a strategic central location between Babylon, Ecbatana, and Persepolis. Here Darius the Great built a magnificent palace that served generally as a winter residence, for, as at Babylon, the summer heat at Susa was extreme. However, as time progressed, Susa became more and more the real administrative center of the empire. See Ecbatana. Shushan. Religion and law. The Persian rulers, while as capable of cruelty as the Semitic kings of Assyria and Babylonia, initially at least seem to have endeavored to manifest a degree of fairness and legality in their dealings with the conquered Pir-Humon-headed bulls near the entrance to the city of Persepolis, Persia, Persian 613 bulls. Their religion apparently contained some concept of ethics. Following their chief god Aramazda, a principal deity was Mithra, who became known not only as a god of war, but also as the god of contracts, the one whose eyes and ears were ever alert to spy out any violator of an agreement. See gods and goddesses. Greek historian Herodotus I, 136-138 wrote of the Persians. They educate their boys from 5 to 20 years old, and teach them 3 things only, riding and archery and truth-telling. They hold lying to be foulest of all. While the history of the Persian rulers shows them to be not above duplicity and intrigue, yet a basic adherence to some tribal creed of keeping one's word may be reflected in their insistence on the inviolability of the law of the Medes and the Persians. Dar 6. 8, 15. As 1. 19. 8. 8. Thus, when Cyrus' decree was found some 18 years after its date of issuance, King Darius recognized the legality of the Jews' position as regards the building of the temple, and gave orders that full cooperation be extended to them. As 6. 1-12. Considerable administrative ability is evidenced in the Persian imperial organization. In addition to the king's own privy council, or advisory board, composed of 7 princes of Persia and Media as 1. 14. As 7. 14. There were satraps appointed over major regions or countries, such as Media, Elam, Parthia, Babylonia, Assyria, Arabia, Armenia, Cappadocia, Lydia, Ionia, and, as the empire expanded, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Libya. These satraps were granted a measure of autonomy in the government of the satrapy, including the administration of judicial and financial affairs within their territory. See satrap. Within the satrapy there appear to have been subordinate governors of jurisdictional districts numbering 127 in King Ahasuerus' day, and within the jurisdictional districts there were princes of the particular peoples composing the district's population. As rate. 36. As 3. 12. 8. 9. Likely to overcome the disadvantage of the imperial capitals being somewhat in a corner of the far-flung domain, a speedy system of communication was developed by means of a royal mail service employing couriers riding post horses, thereby connecting the throne with all the jurisdictional districts. As 8. 10. 14. Royal highways were maintained. One ran from Shushan all the way to Sardis in Asia Minor. From Cyrus' death to Darius' death. The reign of Cyrus the Great ended in 530 BCE when he died while on a warring campaign. His son Cambyses succeeded him to the throne and was successful in conquering Egypt. Though not referred to by the name Cambyses in the Bible, he is evidently the Ahasuerus to whom the opposers of the temple work sent false accusations against the Jews, as stated at Ezra 4. 6. The circumstances involving the end of Cambyses' rule are confused. One account, set forth by Darius the Great in his tongue inscription, and recounted by Herodotus and others with certain variations, is that Cambyses had his brother Bardia called Asmodus by Herodotus secretly put to death. Then, during Cambyses' absence in Egypt, a Magian named Gomata, also called Asmodus by Herodotus, posing as Bardia Asmodus, usurped the throne and was able to gain recognition as king. While returning from Egypt, Cambyses died, and thus the usurper became secure on the throne. Herodotus, 3, 61-67. The other version, favored by some historians, is that Bardia had not been killed and that he, not some impostor, usurped the throne during Cambyses' absence. Whatever the case, the reign of Cambyses ended in 522 BCE and the rule that followed lasted 7 months, ending also in 522 BCE with the assassination of the usurper Idnabadi or Gormada the pseudo-Smidius. Yet during this brief rule apparently a second charge against the Jews was directed to the Persian throne, the king then being designated in O Textoi Acute Muritra Longo, Persia. Persian 614 fit the description of the fourth Persian king, who would rouse up everything against the kingdom of Greece. Da 11. To endeavoring to retaliate for the Persian defeat at Marathon, Xerxes launched massive forces against the Greek mainland in 480 BCE following a costly victory at Thermopylae and the destruction of Athens. His forces met defeat at Salamis and later at Plataea, causing Xerxes to return to Persia. Xerxes' reign was marked by certain administrative reforms and the completion of much of the construction work his father had initiated at Persepolis. Compare Is 10. 1, 2. The Greek stories of the end of Xerxes' reign revolve around marital difficulties, disorders in the harem, and a supposed dominance of Xerxes by certain of his courtiers. These accounts may reflect, though in a very confused and twisted way, some of the basic facts of the Book of Esther, including the deposing of Queen Vashti and her replacement by Esther, as well as the ascension of Mordecai to a position of great authority in the realm. As 2. 17. 10. 3. According to secular accounts, Xerxes was assassinated by one of his courtiers. Artaxerxes Longimanus, Xerxes' successor, is notable for his authorization of Ezra's return to Jerusalem with a large contribution for the support of the temple there. This occurred in Artaxerxes' 7th year 468 BCE. Es 7. 1-26. 8. 24-36 During the 20th year of Artaxerxes 455 BCE Nehemiah was granted permission to go to Jerusalem to rebuild the city. Ne 1. 3. 2. 1. 5-8 Nehemiah later returned for a time to the court of Artaxerxes in that king's 32nd year 443 BCE. Ne 13. 6. There is some disagreement in historical writings with regard to the reigns of Xerxes and of Artaxerxes. Referenced works place Artaxerxes' accession year in 465 BCE. Certain documents give to his father, Xerxes, a reign that continued into the 21st year. Xerxes' rule is customarily counted from 486 BCE when Darius, his father, died. His own first regnal year is viewed as having started in 485 BCE and his 21st year and the accession year of Artaxerxes are often said to have been 465 BCE. As for Artaxerxes, scholars usually say that his last year of rule began in 424 BCE. Some documents present that as year 41 of Artaxerxes' reign. If that were correct, it would mean that his accession year was in 465 BCE and that his first regnal year began in 464 BCE. However, there is strong evidence for calculating the last year of Xerxes and the accession year of Artaxerxes as being 475 BCE. This evidence is threefold. From Greek sources, from Persian sources, and from Babylonian sources. Evidence from Greek sources. An event in Greek history can help us determine when Artaxerxes began ruling. Greek statesman and military hero Themistocles fell into disfavor with his countrymen and fled for safety to Persia. According to Greek historian Thucydides I, CXXXVII, 3, who has gained fame for his accuracy, at that time Themistocles sent on a letter to King Artaxerxes son of Xerxes, who had lately come to the throne. Plutarchus lives Themistocles, XXVII, 1 gives the information that Thucydides and Charon of Lampsacus relate that Xerxes was dead, and that it was his son Artaxerxes with whom Themistocles had his interview. Charon was a Persian subject who lived through the change of rulership from Xerxes to Artaxerxes. From the testimonies of Thucydides and of Charon of Lampsacus, we can see that when Themistocles arrived in Persia, Artaxerxes had recently begun ruling. We can establish the time when Artaxerxes began ruling by calculating back from when Themistocles died. Not all reference books give the same date for his death. However, historian Diodorus Siculus Diodorus of Sicily, 1154, 1. 1158, 3 relates his death in an account of things that happened when Praxeurgus was a chon in Athens. Praxeurgus was a chon in Athens in 471,470 BCE. O Textoi Acute Muritra Longo, Persia, Persian 615 him, at the time of Xerxes' murder, Artaxerxes, his son, was but a child, pure boy, which is true if Xerxes died in 475. Artaxerxes was then 16 years old, whereas in 465 he would have been 26 years old, which would not justify any more Justin's expression. According to this chronology, since Artaxerxes began to reign in 475, the 20th year of his reign proves to be in 455 and not in 445 as it is said quite commonly. Revue Apologetique, Paris, Volume 68, 1939, p. 94. If Darius died in 486 BCE and Xerxes died in 475 BCE, how could it be explained that some ancient documents allot Xerxes a reign of 21 years? It is well known that a king and his son might rule together in a double kingship, or co-regency. If this was the case with Darius and Xerxes, historians could count the years of Xerxes' reign either from the start of a co-regency with his father or from his father's death. If Xerxes ruled 10 years with his father and 11 years by himself, some sources could attribute to him 21 years of rulership, while others might give him 11 years. There is solid evidence for a co-regency of Xerxes with his father Darius. The Greek historian Herodotus 7:3 says, Darius judged his Xerxes' plea for kingship to be just and declared him king. But to my thinking Xerxes would have been made king even without this advice. This indicates that Xerxes was made king during the reign of his father Darius. Evidence from Persian sources. A co-regency of Xerxes with Darius can be seen especially from Persian bas-reliefs that have come to light. In Persepolis several bas-reliefs have been found that represent Xerxes standing behind his father's throne, dressed in clothing identical to his father's and with his head on the same level. This is unusual, since ordinarily the king's head would be higher than all others. In a new inscription of Xerxes from Persepolis,